Hey there, welcome in. I've got a warm mug of tea on my desk, a chill Minecraft world running quietly in the background, and a stack of Reddit stories that are equal parts chaotic, cathartic, and, let's be honest, downright unhinged. If your brain's been buzzing from doomscrolling or the day's nonsense, you're in the right place. There's something oddly satisfying about watching entitled, People Dig Their Own Grave with Nothing But Ego and Poor Choices. And let's be real, sometimes the universe serves karma with a little extra seasoning, just when you least expect it. We've got an hour of poetic justice queued up, and trust me, one story involves a neighbor who literally vibrated himself out of the building. Another, a manipulator so bold they actually practiced crying in the mirror. Let's get into it. I work in a trauma unit, which means I don't exactly have the luxury of sleep-ins or flexible start times. My shifts start before dawn, and I'm often on my feet for 12 hours straight. So sleep isn't just nice to have, it's survival. And for the better part of 8 months, I wasn't surviving. The problem lived directly above me in apartment 3B. He was the kind of neighbor who treated quiet hours like a personal challenge. Almost every night, without fail, the music would start thumping through my ceiling right around 11 p.m. Bass-heavy, window-rattling club anthems, loud enough to feel in my teeth. Then came the stomping, the shouting, the laughter of his friends, an endless stream of them. You'd think he was hosting Coachella up there. At first, I tried to be reasonable. I knocked on his door one night, politely explained that I worked hospital shifts, that I had to be up at 5 a.m., and asked if he could keep it down after 10. He nodded, all fake understanding and apologetic smiles. Oh man, totally, I didn't realize. My bad. That same night, party until 3 a.m. That's when I started documenting. Every loud night, every ignored knock. I called the landlord, twice. He mumbled something about noise policies and promised to look into it. Nothing changed. I called the police 3 times. By the time they arrived, music off, lights dimmed, and my upstairs neighbor with a halo over his head, offering them a beer and saying he had no idea what the complaint was about. But the breaking point came on a Sunday night before a double shift. I was already exhausted from a grueling weekend rotation. I had maybe 6 hours to sleep before needing to scrub in. And right on cue, midnight rolls around and it's another full-blown rave. I knocked again, no answer. I knocked louder, still nothing. I may as well have been whispering to a freight train. That's when something snapped. But instead of yelling or calling the cops again, I remembered something weird and oddly useful from my college physics course. Resonant frequencies. The idea that every structure has a natural frequency, and if you match it just right, you can cause disruptions. It wasn't exactly a plan at first, just a spark of an idea. But I started researching. Turns out many apartment buildings built in the 80s, like ours, have a resonance point somewhere between 8 and 12 hertz. And with the right device, you can make them shake. Not violently, just annoyingly, consistently. Like the world is slightly off balance and refuses to explain why. So I ordered a piece of construction equipment used to settle concrete, a pneumatic vibrator. It wasn't cheap, but I considered it an investment in my mental health. I built a custom housing for it and mounted it directly beneath what I had mapped out as his bedroom. Then I soundproofed my own ceiling, rearranged my bedroom so I could sleep in the living room, and programmed the device to activate at exactly 5 a.m. every single morning. 30 minutes of rhythmic, low-frequency vibration, just enough to jolt someone out of sleep and make them question reality. Day 1, I heard movement above me, stumbling, pacing, confusion. Day 2, he was banging on walls. Day 3, I heard him on the phone, probably with the landlord, ranting about earthquakes or something shaking the building. By the end of the week, he was knocking on other tenants' doors, asking if they felt it too. But here's the beauty of it. The device was so precisely targeted, the apartments on either side of him barely noticed. A slight hum at most. It was just him. Every morning. At 5. Week 2, I saw maintenance guys coming and going from his unit. They looked confused, crawling through crawl spaces, tapping pipes. No one could find the source. Meanwhile, he started sleeping on his couch, probably trying to get away from the epicenter. Didn't help. I adjusted the mounting. The vibrations followed him. By week 3, he looked wrecked. The bags under his eyes could have carried groceries. His once nightly parties, silent. His friends, gone. At one point, I passed him in the hallway, and he jumped when I said good morning. He mumbled something and shuffled off like a man being haunted. Then came the breaking point. I heard him on the phone again, this time yelling, furious. Something about the landlord refusing to fix it, that he was losing his mind. He threatened to break the lease. The next day, he started moving furniture out. Here's the twist of poetic justice. Before he left, he actually stopped me on the stairs. For the first time in 8 months, he was quiet, polite, almost human. He apologized, said he'd been going through a party phase, didn't realize how bad it was. Then, get this, he said he now understood what it felt like to be constantly woken up by forces beyond your control. I nearly laughed, but I just nodded and told him I hoped he found a quieter place. He moved out the next day. The new tenant? A quiet grad student who listens to lo-fi and reads on the balcony. Absolute dream neighbor. I dismantled the device, moved my bed back into the bedroom, and finally, slept like a human being again. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting loud. It's getting calculated. It's using science, precision, and a tiny bit of construction equipment to make karma arrive on schedule. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're as addicted to Reddit drama as I am. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss how this next disaster plays out, because it only gets messier from here. But if you thought that was petty, wait until you hear how one employee exposed their boss using her own productivity system. I used to think micromanagement was just annoying, like someone breathing down your neck because they didn't have enough real work to do. But Patricia, my manager, made it an art form. If you so much as replied to an email with the wrong font size, she'd circle back with a 5-paragraph critique on tone. She loved the sound of her own voice, the power trip of holding pointless meetings, and worst of all, weaponizing policies to make herself look like the hero, while everyone else felt like a failure. She especially had it out for me. I don't know what it was. Maybe I smiled too much or didn't grovel the way she liked. But from the moment I joined the team, she was on me, micromanaging everything, correcting my grammar in Slack messages, asking for hourly updates on projects that didn't even need daily check-ins. It was exhausting. Then came the tracking system. She announced it like it was some revolutionary breakthrough. "We're implementing a new performance analytics tool," she said, as if she hadn't just handed us digital shackles. It tracked everything. Time spent on documents, emails sent, meetings attended, hours billed, even keystrokes if you left the tracker on too long. Patricia beamed like a proud parent. "This will really show who's pulling their weight," she said. And yeah, she was looking directly at me when she said it. At first I panicked. I mean, who wants to be monitored down to the second? But after a week of testing it out, I noticed something interesting. The system tracked everyone, including Patricia. And unlike the rest of us, her numbers weren't just low, they were abysmal. I was putting in full workdays with actual deliverables. Patricia, 90% of her time was spent on meetings she scheduled herself. The rest? Editing PowerPoints about productivity. The irony practically wrote itself. Still, I didn't do anything right away. I figured maybe she'd back off once she saw the data, didn't paint her as queen of efficiency. Nope. She doubled down. One Friday afternoon, she dropped the bomb. Moving forward, our bonuses, job security, and even continued employment would be tied to these metrics. "We can't afford to carry dead weight," she said while holding a meeting that could have been a one-line email. That was the first escalation, and that's when I knew I needed a plan. I started pulling reports, discreetly at first. I had access to the analytics dashboard because I was on the admin list for our team, so I exported the full data set for the past 6 months. I organized it into a beautiful little presentation. Billable hours, task completion rates, client feedback, you name it. And Patricia, bottom of the list in every category. But that wasn't even the worst part. When I dug into the email timestamps, I noticed something fishy. Patricia was scheduling emails to send at weird hours, like 11 p.m. or 5 a.m. The content was generic, nothing urgent, just status updates and FYI summaries. So I cross-referenced the document activity times and, yep, she was writing them during work hours, then scheduling them to send late to make it look like she was grinding around the clock. Classic fake hustle. That week, Patricia called a team meeting. Friday at 4:30 p.m., of course, because what better way to destroy morale? She spent 20 minutes droning on about accountability and how the numbers don't lie. I could feel her winding up to throw someone under the bus. Sure enough, she announced one-on-one performance reviews were happening next week, starting with me. I spent that weekend preparing like I was going into battle, polished the charts, double-checked the data, created clean visuals, and added a few notes for HR. By the time Monday rolled around, I was locked and loaded. Friday hit. I walked into the conference room where Patricia and an HR rep were waiting. She had a folder in front of her labeled with my name, probably filled with cherry-picked screenshots and vague complaints. She opened by saying, "Let's talk about your contributions." According to the system, there are some areas of concern. I let her go on for a bit. She tried to frame everything in this faux concerned tone, like she wasn't gunning for my job. Once she was done, I asked if I could present some context. She nodded smugly, clearly thinking she had me cornered. I opened my laptop and began the presentation. First, I showed the team-wide productivity metrics, average output, time allocation, client feedback. I walked them through the breakdown, highlighting how my stats consistently landed in the top third across all categories. HR was nodding along, scribbling notes. Patricia, stone-faced. Then came the knockout punch. I shifted to the anomalies section, showed graphs of Patricia's scheduled emails compared to document activity, highlighted the pattern of fake late-night work. The kicker? A time-stamped email draft written at 2 p.m. and scheduled to send at 11:59 p.m., followed by a chat message at 8 a.m. saying, "Just saw your reply. Sorry, I was working late." The HR rep's eyebrows shot up. Patricia tried to interrupt, but the rep raised a hand. "Let him finish." So I did. I closed with a chart showing time spent in meetings Patricia scheduled herself, 60% of her week, compared to the team average of 15%. I even included a cost analysis, how much her meetings were costing the company in lost productivity. Spoiler, it was over $40,000 per quarter. The room went silent. Patricia started to speak, but HR cut her off. "We'll need to review this in detail with senior management." That was it. I packed up, walked out, and went back to my desk like nothing happened. The following Monday, Patricia was called into a closed-door meeting with the company president. By Wednesday, she was placed on administrative leave. 2 weeks later, she was terminated for mismanagement and creating a hostile work environment. And the best part? The company actually promoted one of my colleagues, someone who'd also been on Patricia's bad side. We scrapped the Friday evening meetings, switched to weekly 15-minute huddles, and everyone got a raise based on actual productivity data. Sometimes, poetic justice looks like a pie chart. Wow. She really thought she was untouchable, using fake email timestamps and pointless meetings as a smokescreen. And the best part? The system she weaponized ended up exposing her for exactly what she was: inefficient, manipulative, and all bark, no bite. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving someone enough rope and letting them build the gallows themselves. This next revenge doesn't involve spreadsheets, just some very spicy ice cream and a food thief who had it coming. Working in a professional kitchen, you get used to chaos. Burned hands, missing ingredients, last-minute changes, egos bigger than the prep table. It's all part of the game. But there's one thing that absolutely sets me off: someone messing with the food. We had this server, Brandon. He looked like he stepped out of a bad reality show. Perfectly styled hair, overly tight uniform shirt, teeth so white you could signal ships with them. He made good tips, drove a flashy car, and walked around like he owned the place. But the problem wasn't the attitude, it was what he did with the food. Specifically, your food. Brandon had this nasty habit of eating off customers' plates before delivering them to tables, and I don't mean a casual fry here and there. I'm talking actual bites of steak, a scoop of mashed potatoes. He once slurped the foam off a cappuccino like it was a barista taste test. The worst part? He bragged about it, said customers never noticed, said it was part of his quality control. Now I've worked in kitchens for over a decade. I take pride in my plating, my ingredients, the time it takes to get it just right. So when Brandon started targeting my station, the one responsible for cold apps, desserts, and tasting plates, I lost my patience. Not all at once, though. I let it simmer like a good reduction, because I knew if I played it smart, I wouldn't just stop him. I'd make sure he never tried it again. At first, I confronted him directly. "Hey man, you can't be sticking your fingers in the ramekins." He shrugged, smirked. Said something like, "Relax, it's not like the guests see it. They just care about the vibe." The audacity was unreal. I told the GM, he waved it off. Said Brandon brought in too many 5-star reviews to make waves. So I got creative. It started with the truffle oil. Brandon had a weakness for the dipping sauces we served with artisan bread, especially when truffle oil was involved. So one night I prepped a little decoy bowl. Looked exactly like the usual. Deep golden oil, flecks of herbs, and a hint of shaved garlic. But this version? Equal parts olive oil, fish sauce, and liquid smoke. Smelled divine. Tasted like a tire fire dunked in a sardine bath. I placed it just off to the side of my station where Brandon usually prowled. Right on schedule, he swung by during the dinner rush, winked at me, and snuck a slice of bread into the bowl. Big dip, big bite, and then the face. His entire expression curdled in slow motion. He gagged quietly and sprinted for the prep sink, coughing and sputtering like he'd swallowed an ashtray. But that wasn't even the worst part. A couple days later, he came back, like nothing had happened. Didn't apologize, didn't change, just got sneakier. Started waiting until we were busier so I wouldn't notice him sneaking bites. That's when I realized one prank wasn't enough. I needed escalation, something he wouldn't just taste. But remember, enter the mousse. We had a signature chocolate mousse at the time, rich, airy, made with imported dark chocolate and topped with candied orange peel and gold leaf. Brandon was obsessed with it. He always sampled from the back of the tray, thinking no one noticed. So I made a special batch, visually identical, garnished the same, but this version, it was a blend of mayo, cocoa powder, and a generous swirl of wasabi. I plated it in a tiny bowl, just like the real thing, and set it on a chilled tray near the fridge, right where Brandon liked to help himself. It took about 10 minutes. I caught the moment out of the corner of my eye. He grabbed a spoon, dipped in deep, and took the entire thing in one bite. First came the smug grin, then the pause, the blink, the confusion, and finally the horror. He dropped the spoon, sprinted for the service hallway, and spent the next 5 minutes desperately gargling from a squeezed bottle of heavy cream. The wasabi hit him hard. He looked like he'd been pepper sprayed. Eyes watering, face red, breathing like a clogged vacuum. You'd think that would be enough. But Brandon, he was a slow learner, or maybe just stubborn. Then came the breaking point. I was prepping dessert flights when I heard him telling another server that the mousse tasted weird yesterday, but he figured I'd messed up the batch. No accountability, no reflection, just Brandon being Brandon. So I decided to end it. We made our own ice cream in-house using a liquid nitrogen process. It was one of the few things Brandon hadn't tampered with, yet. But I knew he couldn't resist a pristine scoop of our vanilla bean. So I made him one, carefully. The base was cream, vanilla, and sugar, plus a microscopic dose of pure capsaicin extract, the kind used in molecular gastronomy. One drop too much and you'd be in the ER. I added just enough to mask it under the chill, placed it in a ceramic dish, sprinkled a few vanilla flecks for authenticity, set it on the edge of the cold station with a tiny spoon. Brandon struck like clockwork, took a bite, smiled for about 2 seconds, then the fire hit. He froze, blinked, started coughing, then hacking, then gasping for air. He ran out of the kitchen so fast he nearly knocked over the pastry cart. I heard someone in the dining room scream. He made it to the employee bathroom and didn't come out for half an hour. By the time he reappeared, his lips were swollen, his face was pale, and he looked like he'd just gone 12 rounds with a ghost pepper demon. For the next few shifts, Brandon kept his distance. No jokes, no samples. Just quiet, sullen glances in my direction. He never admitted what happened, and he never said a word to management, because how do you complain about being poisoned when you're the one stealing food? A week later, he quit. Said he was looking for something with more creativity. Pretty sure what he meant was, I can't eat here without fear anymore. The new server we hired, professional, respectful, never touches the food unless he's supposed to. Sometimes revenge isn't loud or messy. Sometimes it's just cold, and in this case, served with capsaicin. Honestly, he earned every bite of that chaos. The guy was casually committing food theft on a nightly basis and acting like he was the one doing us a favor. I have to say, getting revenge through wasabi mousse and ghost pepper ice cream, that's next level petty genius. Sometimes the best way to teach someone about boundaries is by lighting their taste buds on fire. Some people just need to be taught boundaries. And in this next story, a master manipulator roommate finally gets out schemed by the quiet one. When I first moved in with Chelsea, I genuinely thought I'd lucked out. She was sweet, polite, even thoughtful, left little thank you notes when I cleaned the kitchen, offered to pick up groceries, always texted before inviting friends over. It felt weirdly functional, like the universe had finally given me a break after 2 years of Craigslist roulette. I wasn't naive, I promise, just hopeful. That lasted about 6 weeks. Chelsea's true personality started leaking out in little ways. I'd go to make dinner and realize half my groceries were gone. A whole pack of chicken breast, missing. My almond milk, empty. I'd ask her about it and she'd blink like a confused cartoon character. Oh my god, that was yours. I'm so sorry. I must have thought it was mine. I'll totally replace it. She never did. At first, I chalked it up to forgetfulness, but then it started happening with other things. My clothes, my shampoo, even my mail. I'd find my sweaters crumpled on her bedroom floor. I walked in on her wearing my shoes once, and she acted like I was the one being weird for pointing it out. I thought you said I could borrow them, she insisted. I never had. But the thing that made Chelsea different, the reason I couldn't just label her a bad roommate and move on, was how she played the victim. Every time I brought up a boundary or asked her to stop using my stuff, she'd crumble into this weird, overly theatrical sadness. I didn't mean to upset you, she'd whisper, tears in her eyes. I've just been under so much stress. You probably think I'm the worst person alive. And then she'd call her mum, loudly, while I was in the next room, sobbing, telling her I was controlling, unstable, or that I hated her for no reason. It was like living with a method actress who never broke character. Still, I tried to keep the peace. I worked long hours and honestly didn't have the energy to fight over every stolen protein bar. But then came Trevor, Chelsea's new boyfriend. He was over constantly, showering in our bathroom, leaving beard trimmings in the sink, lounging shirtless on the couch like he was paying rent. Spoiler, he wasn't. One night I came home and he was eating my leftovers. With my fork. I stared at him and he just gave me a little nod like we were bros. But that wasn't even the worst part. One night I walked into the kitchen to find Chelsea using a package I just had delivered. My skincare products, which I'd specifically labeled. She was opening jars, dabbing creams on her wrist, humming like it was a spa day. When I confronted her, she claimed she thought it was a mistake and that the package must have been hers. I pointed to the giant shipping label with my name on it. She burst into tears. Again. I just thought you'd want me to feel included. I'm sorry I'm such a burden. I realized then I wasn't living with someone who occasionally crossed lines. I was living with someone who didn't believe in lines at all. And the only time she showed remorse was when she thought it might save face. So I stopped engaging emotionally. And I started recording. Legally, of course, only in shared spaces. I installed a small motion-triggered security camera in the kitchen, pointing away from bedrooms and bathrooms. Chelsea didn't question it. I told her it was for general safety after some packages went missing in the building. She actually thanked me, said she felt so much safer knowing we had a camera now. What she didn't realize was that it captured everything. Her eating my food, her going through my deliveries, her borrowing clothes, lying, blaming me for her messes. But the real jackpot. One morning I walked past her room and the door was slightly open. She was in front of her mirror, rehearsing, I'm serious. She was practicing crying, repeating phrases like, I just don't know why she hates me, and I'm really trying, but she keeps making me feel unsafe. She even tested different expressions, tilting her head, adjusting her tone. It was like watching an actress prepare for a courtroom scene, except the courtroom was our living room. I didn't say a word, just walked past, quietly stunned. Then came the breaking point. I had flown home to visit family for the weekend. When I got back, I opened the door to what looked like a Pinterest housewarming party. Chelsea had thrown herself a birthday gathering, moved all my furniture, took down all my personal photos, and told everyone it was her apartment. Friends I didn't even know were still there, laughing, drinking wine in my mugs. I stood frozen in the doorway. Chelsea gasped and rushed over. Oh my God, you're home early. I didn't expect you until tomorrow, I asked calmly, why all my stuff had been rearranged. She blinked twice. I didn't think you'd mind, she said. You weren't using it. That night, after the guests left, she pulled the same routine, sobbing, calling her mum, telling her I had exploded over a tiny gathering and that I had control issues. Then, just to top it off, she texted my mum and told her I was going through something emotional and might need help. That's when I snapped. Quietly, I called a house meeting with the parents. Chelsea's mom, my mom, and even my dad came over. Chelsea was thrilled. She thought it was an intervention. She showed up with a folder of printed screenshots, texts she had edited, notes she'd taken, proving my hostility. Her mom had a whole speech ready about forgiveness. I let her go first. 5 minutes of melodrama. Then I opened my laptop. First, I showed the security footage. Chelsea going through my packages, Chelsea eating my food, Chelsea digging through my side of the bathroom cabinet while I was at work. Then I played the audio recordings. Chelsea admitting she'd used my shampoo just once, followed by another clip where she denied ever touching it. Her contradicting herself, over and over. Then came the grand finale. The mirror footage. Her rehearsing her crying. Her repeating lines about being targeted. Her practicing wiping her face a certain way to look more believable. The room went silent. Chelsea turned bright red. Her mom looked physically ill. My mom just blinked. My dad? He laughed, just once, sharp and disbelieving. Chelsea started stammering. Said it was taken out of context. That she was doing a performance piece for a creative writing class. She even claimed the mirror video was edited to make her look bad. But no one was buying it. Not anymore. Chelsea moved out 3 days later. No apology, no explanation. Just a flurry of packing and a final text that read, "I hope one day you understand how much you hurt me." Yeah, okay. The apartment feels lighter now. Peaceful. I can leave almond milk in the fridge and come home to find it still there. No staged breakdowns, no whispered phone calls, just quiet. I mean, the mirror rehearsal? That's Oscar-level delusion. Who even thinks to fake a crying routine for household arguments? The fact that she tried to flip the narrative after watching herself on tape is honestly wild. Sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the bad guy, until the receipts drop. But the next story proves that even family can be toxic, especially when they show up and never leave. When my sister-in-law moved in, it was supposed to be temporary. 2 weeks, tops. That's what my wife said. Just until she gets back on her feet. And at the time, I didn't argue. Her sister Lindsay had just gone through a breakup, lost her job, and was in a tough place. I figured a little compassion wouldn't kill us. 2 years later, I was very much regretting that compassion. Lindsay turned our guest room into a permanent crash pad and our entire house into her personal nightclub. She didn't just overstay, she took over. Left dishes in the sink for days, played music at full blast while I was in Zoom meetings, borrowed money from my wife without ever paying it back, and worst of all, she'd invite her friends over on weekends and throw these chaotic low-budget parties where someone always broke something. I once found a literal dent in our living room wall that no one could explain. Every time I brought it up, my wife defended her. She just needs time. She's been through so much. She'll figure things out. Yeah, well, while she was figuring things out, I was figuring out how to keep my home from falling apart. To be clear, I didn't hate Lindsay. Not at first, I just hated the version of her that moved into my house and refused to contribute a single dime to rent, bills, or groceries. I tried subtle nudges, I tried gentle conversations, but nothing changed. Lindsay was like a professional couch surfer with a PhD in excuses. But the breaking point came one Sunday morning. I'd been looking forward to a quiet day with the kids, pancakes, cartoons, maybe a walk to the park. Instead, I came downstairs to find Lindsay still drunk from the night before, eating cereal out of a mixing bowl while FaceTiming someone on speaker. In the background, the living room looked like a frat house. Beer cans, lipstick-stained Solo cups, and someone's shoe floating in the fish tank. I lost it. Calmly, but completely. I told her this was our home, not her personal rave cave, and that she had 30 days to make other arrangements. No more wiggle room, no more after the next interview. I wanted a clean exit date. She just rolled her eyes and said, "You can't evict me, I'm family." That's when my wife stepped in, but not to support me. She pulled me aside and told me I was overreacting, that I was being cruel to her sister, and that Lindsay had nowhere else to go. I pointed out that Lindsay wasn't even trying to change, that we were essentially funding her party lifestyle while trying to raise two kids in the middle of a circus. My wife didn't budge. Instead, she said maybe she and the kids should stay with Lindsay for a while. At first, I thought she was bluffing, but she packed bags that night. She took the kids and left. That part hurt. Deep. Not because I couldn't see what she was doing, defending family at the cost of logic, but because it meant she didn't trust me, didn't believe that I wanted peace for everyone, not just myself. For a few weeks, the house was weirdly quiet. Lindsay was gone most nights, probably staying with whoever still tolerated her. My wife and I texted about the kids, but it was all business. Cold, like we were co-workers awkwardly managing a project called shared custody. Then came the twist. About a month after they left, I got a call from my mother-in-law. She wanted to talk, which was unusual since we rarely interacted directly. I agreed and we met at a cafe. She opened with, "So, Lindsay's staying with me now." Apparently things had gone sideways fast. Lindsay didn't just crash at some friend's place. She invited herself into my mother-in-law's home, used her car without asking, got caught lying about applying for jobs, and had the audacity to throw a party there while my in-laws were out of town. Police were called, neighbors complained, and suddenly the golden child status, gone. But that wasn't even the worst part. My wife and the kids had been staying with Lindsay at the in-laws' house, and according to my mother-in-law, Lindsay made things impossible. She hogged the kitchen, bad-mouthed me constantly, and convinced my wife to leave her job because men are supposed to provide anyway. My wife had started to see the cracks. When my in-laws finally told Lindsay she had to leave, she screamed, accused everyone of ganging up on her, said I had turned the whole family against her. She packed her stuff in the middle of the night and left, again, this time for a friend's couch that, as far as anyone could tell, didn't exist. And suddenly the calls from my wife got softer, less defensive, more, "Hey, the kids miss you, and I think I need to talk." We met up, talked, cried even. She admitted she'd felt torn between loyalty to her sister and loyalty to our family, that she hadn't wanted to abandon Lindsay, especially when things got messy. But watching her meltdown at her parents' house, that was the moment she realized Lindsay wasn't just struggling. She was manipulative, entitled, and toxic. We took things slow, therapy, co-parenting schedules, but within 2 months, my wife and the kids were back home, and Lindsay completely cut off. Even her parents stopped replying to her texts after she tried guilt-tripping them into paying her phone bill. She ended up exactly where she refused to be for 2 years, alone, broke, and out of couches to crash on. Sometimes the people you try hardest to save are the ones most determined to sink the ship, and when they finally fall overboard, you just have to let them drift. I mean, you can't evict me, I'm family. That line should be embroidered on a pillow in every therapist's office. The entitlement, the manipulation, the way she played everyone until there was no one left to play. Textbook narcissist energy. Sometimes giving someone too many chances just teaches them they can keep getting away with it. And sometimes the only thing that fixes the dynamic is letting it implode. What do you do when your girlfriend demands you give a 10-year-old your $3,000 camera? This next guy found out the hard way. I've been into photography for years, long before dating apps and step-parent drama. My camera is more than a tool. It's an investment, an obsession, and honestly, a coping mechanism. I saved for months to buy the body, the lenses, the gear bag. Every little component has a purpose, and every scratch tells a story. So when my girlfriend asked me to give it away, to her 10-year-old daughter no less, my brain short-circuited. It started innocently enough. Her daughter Ellie had recently shown an interest in photography, which I thought was cool. She'd seen me editing shots and asked questions about aperture and shutter speed. I even let her help me clean my gear once, under close supervision. She was curious and I was happy to nurture that. I love that kind of creative curiosity in kids. Then one night, my girlfriend sat down beside me on the couch and dropped the question. So, I was thinking, Ellie's birthday's coming up, and I thought, maybe it's time she had a real camera. Something like yours. I smiled and said, that's a great idea. I've actually got a short list of beginner-friendly DSLRs that are really capable and way easier for her to learn on. Her face twisted. No, I mean, why not just give her yours? I blinked. My camera, a $3,000 setup with a weather-sealed body, fast glass lens, and custom grip was not a toy. I used it professionally for events, nature shoots, and freelance gigs. And while I appreciated Ellie's interest, she was still at the accidentally dropped her iPad in the tub stage of childhood. I calmly explained all this. Told her I was totally willing to help Ellie pick out a great starter kit, maybe even gift it myself. I'd teach her how to use it, take her on shoots, show her the ropes. I thought that was a generous offer. Apparently, I was wrong. "You're being selfish," she snapped. "You always say you want to be a father figure, but when it counts, you choose your stupid camera over Ellie." That one hit hard. Not because it was true, but because she'd never pulled the real father card before. I reminded her I wasn't trying to gatekeep photography. I just wasn't willing to hand over thousands of dollars of fragile gear to a child. She rolled her eyes and muttered something about priorities. And that's when I noticed it wasn't about the camera. It was about control. But that wasn't even the worst part. A few days later, I overheard her talking on the phone with her sister. She didn't know I was in the hallway. She said, and I quote, "He thinks he's being generous, but honestly, he's being cheap. I'm not marrying someone who treats Ellie like a guest instead of his own kid." It stopped me cold. Up until that point, I'd thought we were building something together. We'd been dating almost 2 years. I'd been there for birthdays, dance recitals, stomach flu emergencies. I wasn't trying to replace Ellie's dad, but I had stepped up. I thought that counted for something. Clearly, she didn't see it that way. The next morning, she sat me down for what she called a reality check. She said it was time for me to prove I was serious about their family. That giving Ellie the camera was a symbolic gesture. That if I couldn't part with something material for the sake of my child, then maybe I wasn't cut out for the role. I told her I had made gestures, time, money, patience. But those didn't seem to matter unless there was a flashy, high-value item attached. That's not parenting, that's bribery. Then came the breaking point. She gave me an ultimatum: either hand over the camera before Ellie's birthday, or rethink whether I belonged in their lives at all. And you know what? For a few seconds, I considered giving in. I imagined Ellie's face lighting up, the excitement, the joy, but then I imagined the inevitable drop, the cracked lens, the tearful apologies, and the resentment that would follow. Not just hers, mine, because it would never really be hers. And deep down, my girlfriend knew that. She didn't want Ellie to have a camera. She wanted her to have mine, to own something of mine, something that meant the world to me, something that would send a message. He chose us over himself. But relationships aren't built on ultimatums, so I told her no. She stormed out of the room. Later that night, she said she needed space. Took Ellie to her mum's and didn't come back for a week. During that time, I started thinking, really thinking, about the kind of partner I wanted, about boundaries and respect, and how many times I'd compromised without asking for anything back. When she finally came home, she was cold, distant, said she couldn't trust someone who couldn't sacrifice for the family. I didn't argue. I just nodded and said, "Then maybe I'm not your family." She moved out 2 weeks later. Ellie sent me a sweet card a few months after, thanking me for teaching her about lighting and shadows. Said she got a camera from her aunt and was practicing every weekend. I still keep that card in my gear bag. Sometimes the people who accuse you of being selfish are just mad they couldn't manipulate you. And sometimes saying no isn't about the object. It's about drawing the line between love and leverage. Man, if you loved us, you'd give us your $3,000 camera. That's not a test of love. That's a guilt trip with a price tag. The fact that he offered to buy us something better suited, and that still wasn't enough, that says everything. Sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the bad guy, until you walk away and realize you were never the problem. The next tale involves a surprise party, stolen identity, and a roommate who went way too far. My roommate Emma was the type of person who could charm the skin off a snake and convince it she was doing it a favor. When we first moved in together, she seemed cool, friendly, talkative, a little too into horoscopes maybe, but overall harmless. She had this kind of soft influencer vibe, cozy aesthetic, chamomile tea obsession, one of those voices that always sounded like she was 5 seconds from asking if you've tried yoga with goats. We split rent evenly, shared kitchen space, and for the most part kept to ourselves. For 6 months, everything felt normal. Then came the party, or rather, The party that I didn't know was happening at my own apartment. I had a weekend work trip lined up. Nothing major, just a client shoot out of town. I let Emma know I'd be gone Friday through Sunday, and she was like, cool, safe travels, end of conversation. Or so I thought. Saturday evening rolls around and my shoot wraps early. I managed to get a standby seat back home and figure, hey, why not surprise Emma with takeout and a quiet night in? I'm tired but happy. That lasted exactly until I stepped into my building and heard music thumping through the elevator doors, loud, bass heavy, and absolutely coming from my floor. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor was having people over, but the second the elevator doors opened, I saw it, a big hand-drawn sign on my apartment door, in glittery ink. Happy birthday, M. Now, my name also starts with M, but I was born in February. This was October. I unlocked the door and walked into a full-blown party. Balloons, streamers, people I didn't know dancing in my living room, and in the middle of it all, Emma, wearing one of my dresses, standing in front of a letterboard sign that read, "Welcome to my home." I stood there in disbelief. Emma turned, caught sight of me, and didn't even flinch, just gave me this nervous little wave and said, "Hey, you're back early." Yeah, no kidding. She immediately rushed over and tried to usher me into the hallway, like I was some random +1 who'd wandered in by mistake. I pushed past her, walked into the kitchen, and saw my framed photos, including one with my family, tucked away under the sink. The walls were stripped of everything personal. It was like she'd staged the whole place to erase me. Then came the kicker. I heard her introduce herself to a group of guests as Emily, the photographer. That's me. That's my job. She was using my name, my job title, and even telling people how hard it is to live alone in the city, but I make it work. I stood there like, am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher about to pop out of the pantry? One of the guests turned and said, "Wait, are you the real Emily?" And that's when it all cracked open. The party went quiet, like someone hit the mute button on life. I just stared at Emma and said, "Why are you pretending to be me at my own apartment?" She tried to play it off. "It's just a theme party," she insisted. "It's a joke. Everyone knows I don't really live alone." I looked at the guests. They did not know. Then came the breaking point. One of the guests, some guy in a sweater vest holding a beer can, said, "Wait, I thought this was your place. You gave a whole tour and everything. Said your roommate moved out." Emma froze. I could practically hear her brain short-circuiting. I pulled out my phone and opened the security app connected to our indoor camera, the one pointed at the hallway. I'd mostly used it to check if I'd left the stove on. But now it was gold. I turned the screen around, hit play, and showed a clip of Emma hiding my photos, moving my books into boxes, and changing the name on the letterboard from Emily's office to Emma's studio. Right there, time-stamped and HD. The crowd lost it. Someone literally said, "Yo, this is some Netflix-level identity theft." Emma tried to laugh. Okay, it was just a performance art piece. You know, commentary on identity and modern loneliness. Yeah, no one was buying it. I told everyone the party was over and started ushering them out. Most people left quietly, muttering apologies or just giving me those looks. The kind people give when they realize they're inside a story they'll definitely be telling later. Emma stayed behind, sulking. She tried one last angle, said she was just trying to feel special, and that I had so much already. As if that justified pretending to be me for an entire weekend. She asked if I was going to kick her out, and I said yes, absolutely yes. She cried, said I was ruining her life. I reminded her she'd just hosted a party where she lied to dozens of people about who she was. "You didn't borrow my shoes," I told her. "You borrowed my existence." By the end of the week, she was gone. She tried leaving a note behind, something about misunderstood intentions and how I was too rigid to understand art. I fed it straight into the paper shredder and then cleaned my whole apartment top to bottom, scrubbed the glitter out of the grout, put my name back on the letterboard, rehung every picture, and for the record, I did throw my own party a few weeks later. Small crowd, real friends, no stolen identity required. Honestly, this one broke my brain a little. Like, I've heard of roommates using your shampoo or borrowing your charger without asking, but rebranding your entire personality? That's next level performance fraud. She didn't just cross a boundary, she rewrote the lease agreement. Sometimes being the reasonable one doesn't make you safe. It just makes you the perfect cover story. Some betrayals are personal. Others, they play out on a much bigger stage, like this next office revenge. The project started as a long shot. I was just a junior associate at a mid-sized tech firm, fresh out of grad school, buried under spreadsheets and polite emails that ended with happy to help, even when I was dying inside. But when my department was asked to pitch a new automation tool for the company's Q3 conference, I raised my hand. I didn't expect them to actually pick me. It was supposed to be a collaborative effort, but pretty quickly it turned into me working nights and weekends, hammering out code, building mock-ups, designing pitch decks, and running simulations. I crafted every slide, every talking point, every animated graphic. I even built an interactive demo that let you simulate ROI in real time by dragging a slider across potential use cases. It was sleek, it was efficient, and it was mine. My manager loved it. The director signed off, and then our CEO, Nathan, got involved. Nathan was one of those visionary types, all buzzwords, no substance. He was great at talking fast and saying nothing, always circling back, always leveraging synergy. But he looked the part, polished, tall, unnaturally white teeth. So when he said he wanted to personally present the tool at the big annual industry conference, nobody questioned it, including me. At first, he came to my desk a week before the event, asked me to send him the final deck. "You crushed this," he said with a wink and finger guns. "Seriously, great work. I'll take it from here," and that's when I got nervous. The night before the conference, I saw the internal email go out with the final presentation attached. It was my deck, word for word, slide for slide, but all attribution to me had been stripped. Title slide now said presented by Nathan Carmichael, CEO. My name, my department, my role, gone. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I flew out early, grabbed a seat near the front of the auditorium, and waited. Nathan took the stage like a rock star, mic clipped to his blazer, that smug TED Talk energy dialed to 11. He launched into my presentation like he'd written it in his sleep. It was surreal, like watching someone perform a cover of your song, badly. But that wasn't even the worst part. Halfway through the presentation, Nathan clicked to the interactive demo, the one I'd built from scratch, coded myself, and uploaded via our internal cloud system. As he explained how he and the team had developed this proprietary simulation tool, the app launched on the giant screen behind him. And there it was, in the bottom corner, exactly as I'd left it during my last round of testing, my watermark. C, developed by my name, Systems Analyst 2. He paused, blinked, the audience noticed. Someone up front whispered something, and a ripple of recognition moved across the room. Nathan tried to keep going, started clicking frantically through slides, but it was too late. The Q&A session started and the knives came out. "Can you walk us through the technical challenges of building that ROI simulator? Which part of the code did you personally contribute to? Was this really an internal CEO-led initiative?" He fumbled, stammered, said something about collaborative synergy across departments. But the audience wasn't buying it. Tech people can smell bull from a mile away, and this room reeked. Someone even raised their hand and said, "I follow my name on LinkedIn. Pretty sure he built that." And then someone else added, "Yeah, he posted a teaser about this last week." Nathan's face went a shade I can only describe as LinkedIn grey. Sweaty, tight-jawed, and cornered by a projector. The clip hit social media within hours. It was posted by someone in the audience, captioned, "CEO tries to take credit for employees' work, gets exposed mid-presentation." It went viral, like actual viral. People in the comments were calling me a legend, a one-man dev team, and a walking HR violation lawsuit. The company tried to spin it, sent out an internal memo that said the presentation was a joint success, showcasing company-wide innovation. But the damage was done. Nathan didn't show up to the office the next week, or the one after that. HR called me in, and for a second I thought I was in trouble. Instead, they offered me a promotion, senior analyst, full project autonomy, and, this part still feels fake, a raise that made me audibly choke on my coffee. I accepted. Nathan eventually stepped down to explore other opportunities, which I'm pretty sure is corporate speak for got kicked out with a golden parachute and a stern talking to. The new CEO actually asked me questions, actually credits the team, actually listens, and the next time we had a major presentation, I was the one on stage. I mean, the watermark. That's the kind of poetic justice you just can't plan. This man tried to eat the whole cake and choked on the icing. The fact that he didn't even think to double-check the demo tells you everything you need to know. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone trip over their own ego in front of a live audience. But what happens when the thief is someone much younger and sneakier? I make digital art for a living. Commissions, prints, merchandise, the usual online hustle. It's taken years to build up a following, not to mention all the late nights I spent learning the ropes, watching tutorials, and crying over broken file saves. But at some point, I realized I was actually making it. People were buying my work. I was getting recognition. For once, imposter syndrome didn't feel like the loudest voice in the room, which made it all the more infuriating when I found out someone close to me had been stealing it. At first, I didn't realize what was happening. Orders from my online shop had started dropping, but traffic stayed the same. Weird, right? Then a follower DM'd me on Instagram with a screenshot. It was one of my most popular prints, except someone else had slapped their name on it. A watermark I'd never seen before, and a sketchy Etsy store link. That someone was my teenage niece Zoe. She was 16, super into anime, kind of edgy in that I'm not like other girls, I draw wolves way. We'd bonded over art before. I even gave her my old tablet when she started getting serious about drawing. I'd shared my brushes, tips, the works. I thought I was being the cool artist aunt trademark. Turns out I was just giving her the tools to rip me off. Her Etsy store was called Zoarts, which, okay, I'll give her points for the branding. But the listings? All mine. Full-color prints, old fan art I'd made back in college, even some of my custom commission work. She had pulled stuff straight from my website, cropped out my watermark, and uploaded it like it was hers. And people were buying it. I was stunned and angry, but mostly stunned. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to, but I knew if I just called her out, she'd probably cry, blame inspiration, or worse, play the "but we're family" card. So instead, I did what any mildly unhinged digital artist would do. I set a trap. I created 5 brand new pieces. Gorgeous, eye-catching stuff that looked real but had tiny flaws baked in, like an ear just slightly off, or a hand with too many knuckles. Nothing super obvious, but enough that anyone familiar with art would notice something felt off. And in each one, I hid a tiny transparent watermark, like really hidden, embedded in the file metadata too. Then I posted them on a secret portfolio site, something small and obscure, not linked to my main socials. I even posted a few fake inquiries in artist forums, pretending to be someone interested in commissioning that new artist I just found. Sure enough, within 2 weeks, the exact same flawed pieces started popping up on Zoe's Etsy. Same composition, same errors. She'd even written fake descriptions for them, claiming they were inspired by dreams. That's when I reported her. Not just to Etsy, but also to every platform she was on. Because here's the thing about stolen art. Once you've got proof it's yours, the internet loves helping you get justice. Etsy took down the store. Instagram flagged her account. Even Redbubble, where she'd uploaded a few stolen stickers, nuked everything. But that wasn't the real twist. The real twist came when her high school art teacher emailed me. Apparently Zoe had submitted one of my older pieces, something I'd made for a charity zine, as her senior portfolio project. The teacher had reverse image searched it when she got suspicious, and found my original Tumblr post from 5 years ago. So now her school was involved. They didn't just fail her on the project, they opened a formal academic integrity case, which for a school with an arts program tied to college recommendations, big deal. That's when the meltdown happened. I got a teary phone call from my sister, Zoe's mum, who until then had no idea any of this was going on. She was furious, not at me, at Zoe. I didn't even have to explain much. I just emailed over the side-by-sides, the Etsy receipts, the metadata screenshots. It was a complete digital paper trail of I did not make this. Zoe finally confessed, said she just wanted to feel successful, and that seeing my print sell made her jealous, that she didn't think it would actually matter because no one would find out, which is such teenager logic I almost felt bad. Almost. She issued a private apology, not public. Just a note to me, handwritten, saying she was sorry for disrespecting my work and promising to stop. I told her I appreciated the apology, but trust takes time to rebuild. And this wasn't a smudge. It was full-on identity theft. She's grounded now. No social media, no art contests, no commissions. And according to my sister, she has to earn back tablet privileges by doing actual class assignments for the rest of the year. Honestly, I hope she learns something from this, because stealing someone's art isn't just lazy, it's erasing their time, talent, and effort, and doing it to your own family, that's next level selfish. Sometimes the people closest to you assume access equals permission, and sometimes the best revenge is just letting the truth speak for itself, watermarks and all. This next revenge story, it starts in the group chat and ends in total isolation. Our wedding was supposed to be small, intentional. We didn't want some over-the-top Pinterest circus with ice sculptures and a fog machine. Just close friends, a few family members, and a ceremony that actually felt like us. We found this little historic inn tucked in the woods with a candlelit courtyard, live acoustic guitar, and a reception room that looked like something out of a fairy tale. Intimate, cozy, and peaceful. Keyword, supposed to be peaceful. I hadn't originally planned on inviting my cousin Carly. We weren't super close, but our mums are sisters, and there was that whole "you'll regret it if you don't invite" family pressure that hits hard during wedding planning. Carly has 3 kids, ages 6, 8, and 10, and they're, let's say, unmonitored. I asked her nicely on the invite to arrange a sitter if she could, but she texted back something like, "They're excited to come. Don't worry, they'll be so good." They were not. The chaos started before the ceremony even began. The youngest was chasing one of the venue cats with a butter knife he'd taken from the appetizer table. The middle one climbed onto the vintage piano in the lobby and started doing the worm on it. The oldest was under a table unplugging the DJ's power strip. Meanwhile, Carly was on her phone, posting selfies. When I gently asked her if she could keep an eye on them, she said, "Oh, they're just excited. It's a wedding." Okay. Deep breath. Grace. It's one afternoon. I'll survive. The ceremony starts. We're walking down the aisle, guitar playing. Everyone's crying. My husband's face is the kind of happy that makes you cry just looking at it. It's perfect. And then one of the kids lets out a loud, "Bruh," like full volume echoing off the walls. Right during our vows, everyone laughed awkwardly. I smiled like it was fine, but my eye twitched a little. Carly? She laughed, like it was adorable. But that wasn't even the worst part. The first dance. Our moment. The room goes quiet, the lights dim, and we start slow dancing to this beautiful song we picked out together. It was something deeply personal, something that meant a lot to us. And about 30 seconds in, we hear this thud, 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 like stampeding rhinos. Carly's kids had bum-rushed the dance floor, and not in a cute, oops, they wanted to join way. Number. These kids were doing full-blown TikTok dances, whipping, dabbing, flossing, shouting lyrics to completely different songs, spinning into guests' legs. One of them dabbed into my husband's back and knocked him slightly off balance. It was like trying to slow dance in the middle of a daycare gone feral. We stopped mid-song. Guests looked around, confused. I shot Carly a look and she finally strolled over, laughing, and said, "They just wanted to be included." "Isn't it cute?" I said, "This is our first dance." She said, "Don't be a bridezilla." And that was the moment. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just smiled, walked over to the DJ, and asked him to skip to dinner. Then I pulled my husband aside and we danced quietly on the side patio under some string lights. Just the two of us. No TikTok, no audience. Just a moment that still felt like ours. But the story doesn't end there, because the next day, Carly posted a video. Captioned, "My kids stole the show at this boring wedding luau," complete with footage of them interrupting our dance, plus a zoom in on me looking visibly annoyed. That post was my final straw. So I posted my own video. One of our guests had filmed the ceremony and reception. I edited together a highlight reel. The butter knife incident, the piano worm dance, the unplugged power strip, the brew during vows, the TikTok invasion, and Carly's selfie in the middle of it all. No commentary, just raw footage. I didn't even mention Carly by name, but the comments knew. Our entire extended family saw it. Friends, people Carly worked with. Her boss, who apparently had been considering her for a promotion, replied to the video saying, "Professionalism shows up in all aspects of life." That video hit 250,000 views in 3 days. My mom called me in shock. Carly's own mother called her and said, "I love you, but I wouldn't have brought you to my wedding either." Her sister messaged me and apologized on her behalf. Carly messaged me too, something like, "Wow, way to publicly humiliate your own family over a dance." And I responded, "Way to ruin someone's wedding and call it parenting." We haven't spoken since. I mean, the phrase, "they just wanted to be included," is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. There's a difference between kids being kids and parents being willfully absent. If you can't supervise your chaos goblins for 2 hours, maybe don't bring them to a candlelit ceremony next to an antique piano. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't explode, it's hit record. Our final tale? Let's just say it ends with a career destroyed and a sweet twist of poetic justice. It was a slow Tuesday morning at the home goods store where I worked, one of those mid-tier chains where the candles cost too much, the throw pillows change every 2 weeks, and the customers come in with coupons that expired before smartphones were invented. I've been working there for almost 2 years, long enough to memorize every cent in aisle 7 and develop the customer service sixth sense, the one where you feel a Karen coming before you even see her. That day, my radar was going off hard. She marched in with purpose, faux leather tote, oversized sunglasses indoors, and a stack of coupons that looked like they'd been printed when printers still made dial-up sounds. She didn't smile. She didn't greet me. She just slammed the coupons on the counter and said, "Scan these." "I want everything from the clearance rack." I gently informed her that the coupon was expired. Like, really expired. 2018 expired. I explained that it had already been redeemed and voided, which was store policy. I even offered her 10% off with a current promo just to soften the blow. That's when she flipped the switch. "Excuse me? Are you saying I'm trying to scam you? Do you have any idea who I am?" And I'm thinking, "Lady, I have no idea who you are, but I'm 90% sure I've seen you yell at a Panera cashier before." She demanded to speak to my manager. Which, fine, I've got nothing to hide. I paged Sharon, our store lead, who came over, took one look at the coupon and said, "Ma'am, this has been void for 5 years. Cue dramatic gasp. Karen went full Oscar mode, said we were discriminating against her, that she was a loyal customer, that she was going to report me for harassment and verbal assault. Mind you, the only thing I'd said was, "Unfortunately, I can't accept this, but I'm happy to apply the current promo." She stormed out, but not before pointing at me like she was casting a hex. "You'll regret this. Trust me. I know people at corporate." We all laughed it off until the email came in. Corporate had received a complaint, a formal one. Karen claimed I was hostile, condescending, and that I threatened her in front of customers. She described my appearance in detail, which meant she'd remembered my name tag. She even said she had video proof. That last part made me pause, because we have video proof too. Our store has full coverage CCTV, synced to registers, every angle, every word, every fake gasp and expired coupon tantrum, caught on camera. Sharon reviewed the footage and sent it straight to corporate. Not only did it show me being calm and professional the entire time, but there was also a little bonus Karen hadn't counted on. Right before she stormed out while I was turned around grabbing her voided coupon, the footage clearly showed her slipping a $30 ceramic mug into her bag. She didn't pay for it. Yup. While yelling about how we were disrespecting her rights, she straight up shoplifted, right in front of a camera. The next day, we got another call, but not from Karen, from corporate security. Apparently, Karen had done this at multiple store locations. Same playbook. Old coupons, fake complaints, threats of escalation, and then a souvenir on the way out. They'd been trying to collect enough footage to ban her company-wide, and my case was the final nail. She was flagged and blacklisted, as in banned from every store in our chain nationwide. Corporate issued a formal apology to me, credited my paycheck with a performance bonus, and sent me a handwritten thank you card signed by the district manager. It gets better. 2 weeks later, a new customer walked in, did a double take when they saw me and said, "Hey, are you the girl from the Karen video?" Turns out Sharon had shared the footage, with faces blurred of course, during a team meeting, and it kind of made the rounds internally. I was a minor retail legend. I mean, the entitlement is just breathtaking. Not only did she try to weaponize customer service protocols, she literally recorded herself stealing while doing it. Like some kind of 2-for-1 special on getting banned and arrested. Sometimes the best revenge isn't explosive. It's quietly being so right that the truth just handles it for you. If you've made it all the way here, you're as hooked as I am. Sweet dreams, everyone. And remember, sometimes karma takes a while, but it always shows up. Until next time, stay cozy, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next story.